Greetings. It is the 25th of April. Delighted to have you with us celebrating Sense Month. It's our fifth year of talking about and celebrating application of human senses and sense making in the world around us. Delighted to have you here, and I'm delighted to have Mike McGuire, my co-host on the West Coast, with us. And Mike, I don't see you on camera, but I'm glad that you're here today. So let's just dive in. I'm going to give you a little framing about sense, using human senses, sense mapping as a practice in content evolution. We'll get to that. And then, opportunities, because I think that the most important thing is to share ways that you can apply this body of knowledge immediately. There was a paper that we delivered as a team at the Applied Human Factors and Ergonomics Conference several years ago. It won an award at that time. It was called Designing from the Inside Out. And what we proposed in that paper was it would be wonderful if we designed both the organizations and the approach to the world at large as fully human, right? And coherent, both in terms of what we were doing inside the organization and how that, became externalized. Many times the disruptions that we, find is that what we're doing internally isn't manifesting in a way that is coherent to the outside world, or we're not on the same page, and therefore, it becomes an issue. We also think that we don't use all 5 human senses to engage with our clients and to create imprints and retrievals that are meaningful. There are organizations that do this masterfully. I've spent time over the years with Coca-Cola. This, at the end of the day, this is sweet fizzy water, all right, that has a particular flavor to it. But what they play on is retrieval of the first time that you had a Coke, and it's normally associated with a happy time with family or friends, and they try to get that to come back over and over again. Even though this is, essentially a commodity type product, they're able to charge a little bit more. They're able to get additional preference from folks because they want to, retrieve that moment, that was, from the past, right? That was a happy time, right? And so all the advertising, all the things that you see from the Coca-Cola company are about that. But there's also some engineering that goes on. The cans, right, are specifically designed when you open it. The sound that it makes is actually tuned, right? That you say, oh, I know what that is, all right? And it's different, slightly different in tone from some of the, try it sometime when you have more than one kind of a can available. The Coke can sounds a little bit different than other things that are, created. And then they have a very specific way that when you open it, it atomizes, right? When the pressure is, with the air around it and the pressure of the carbonization inside, it actually releases molecules of the Coke into the air, so you can smell it before you taste it, right? It's something that you expect. Sometimes you actually get it on your hand, right? Because that atomization, and you have to wipe it off. But the point is, it's presenting itself before you taste it. This is all designed, right? Over years. The contour bottle, the way that fits in the hand, is a branded piece that is to the hand. It's very, very thoughtful. all right, in terms of being able to grip it. It feels different than other, types of balls. There are some that are similar, like Orangina, all right, and as you go into different places in the world, but at the end of the day, those shapes, and it has a shape of a human figure, right? If you look at it long enough. So it's very interesting stuff. But it's all in the, the notion of making the offerings, whether they're commodities, products, services, and ultimately experiences, the way that Joe Pine, talks about that, one of our advisors, the co-author of The Experience Economy. And by the way, Joe is now talking about the top end of his scale. He's writing about transformations as we speak. If you have something that you want to say about transformation, now is the time to insert some thoughts, all right, for Joe. He's welcoming that. So with that said, you want to be able to do this first inside the organization so that you're all on the same page. Diversity is good in terms of, formulating paths going forward. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to present in some, as I said, coherent fashion, what you're presenting both to the world at large and to your value chain. Don't forget about the people who are providing the precursors to what you're doing, because if you don't pay attention to what they're doing, the problem that you end up with is the Takata airbag problem. It's so big, that you can use this as an exemplar. That there's one company providing something to the Japanese automobile industry where they're not on the same page in terms of quality, Kaizen, Kanban, total quality management. And they're providing an airbag that actually hurts people as opposed to, helping them survive a crash. And that's a problem, right? So you want all of those folks not to necessarily just be the lowest cost supplier. You want them to be on the same, page as you are in terms of shared interests and shared values, if possible. So we're going to focus for a moment on what are the opportunities to actually, apply something. In the past, we've looked at visual, we've looked at audio. Let's take a moment and talk about, what is possible with our taste and smell, right? Because they're often excluded. Sometimes people don't think there are opportunities. There are always opportunities to apply all 5 human senses if you're creative enough. If I say this, all right, I'm holding up, all right, baking vanilla. What do you think that, if you smell this, what is that associated with? What do you think? There's a profile, and that profile says that vanilla is about home, kitchen, right? Comfort, right? That's the vanilla smell, right? If I invoke this, right? Lemon, lime, right? What do you associate with that, right? They're bright, clean, right? They are associated with, being more awake, right? So, you can invoke those flavor and scent profiles, to do certain tasks. One of the things that we had suggested to Amazon is that in delivery for certain kinds of packaging, that they could indeed rethink the way that they were doing packaging, the same way that we did for ThinkPad in Japan, where instead of a brown craft box, people were taking them home from a retail store, and we wanted it to look like a gift. So we changed the devices that we were selling from the stores to have a white craft box with red packing tape not only across the seam, but the other way around, so it looked like it was gift wrapped, right? When you're walking out, and people would take that on the train and say, "What is that?" Right? It would cause a conversation so that you got a secondary effect on the way home on the train or out in public, because most people don't drive. Most people are on foot and they're moving from point A to point B. So that's helpful. But how would you make that smell like something? What we had suggested in a conversation with 3M about its glue in the packing tape is that you can put molecules of scent and infuse it into the glue so that you seal it up. Then when I break the bonds, to open the package, right, it releases a scent into, the environment when you're first opening whatever it is. So Amazon could do that if they wanted to for certain things that they would want a scent profile associated with for, that you've ordered cleaning supplies. Okay, now put the lemon juice smell, right, into the packing tape for the cleaning supplies because that's what you want to, communicate about what you're receiving. Same might be true for something that's, comforting. Let's go for the vanilla tape on this one. If you haven't received anything recently from Amazon, they actually custom craft boxes robotically to actually fit what's going on inside. It's laser scanned and then it's packaged right exactly to what you want. So you say, well, that sounds complicated. They're already well on their way to customizing how they package, right? And it would not be difficult to imagine, being able to do those kinds of tasks. So we have opportunities, even things like this. This is a USB diffuser, right? Where I can put, scent sticks into here. It heats up, right? And, creates a better working environment. When I'm actually writing, I, stick that into my, for certain kinds of writing, stick that in and helps, create better writing environment. So this is giving you an idea of what we do, how we think about it. I'm not going to try to unpack it all. The technology that sense mapping uses as a practice team looks like music. So the lower, what you would normally think of as the C clef, the lower notes are the 5 human senses. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like, smell like, and taste like? The upper G clef is where does it reside, right, in the human mind and consciousness, right? Is this a logical construct? Is it emotional? Is it more of an imprint or a retrieval from the amygdala where it's more hardwired? And how do we orchestrate both the first time that you experience it as an imprint and how do we retrieve it over time and do that as a map, right, that is, a well thought out, set of senses and sense making as an interplay over time. We've done it for Lenovo. We have done it for Align Technology, which is the company that behind Invisalign braces. Right, those are the two that I can talk about. And there are some others, but we're still, still proprietary what we did for them, and they've asked for us to not talk about it. So that's a quick overview. It's sense making, human senses, inside to outside, including the value chain. And if you do it right, you create coherence that's highly valuable to make sure that you're using your resources and your sense points. A lot of people talk about touch points. We talk about sense points, that your sense points are aligned to what you're trying to communicate and the level of engagement that you want with your marketplace. So that's the starter. let's go to a conversation now about what this means to you or questions that you have as we celebrate Sense Month. And let's see who is inspired to ask a question. And Andrea Goldberg is first. Andrea.
Hey, well, what you said reminds me when I was with Pitney Bowes, and one of the differentiators Pitney Bowes realized is the packaging. And not only, you talked about the senses, but the visual senses. It wasn't just taste and feel. It was, and they would put in certain packaging, like you'd open it and like confetti would come out, and it was it was like party experience versus you just open it and you get your item, and they could brand something Amazon won't do. Amazon will only, it's an Amazon package, but Pitney Bowes was willing to put the brand of the company and the color of the company. And so, obviously there was a cost to it, but a lot of clients, especially in the more premium senses, wanted that whole experience versus you think about the opening a package right now is, you just tear open a brown envelope or if it's in a box. And so it's, and when you talked about that sensory experience, a lot of invitation companies now, you don't just open an invitation, something pops out, whether it's glitter or something. So I think we're seeing that. I saw that from a business perspective, a personal perspective, is taking like a more mundane experience and elevating it through using some of the other sensory things.
Yeah, I mean the greeting card companies have, for years had, a side, set of specialty cards that are more like origami, right? That, they become three-dimensional when you open them.
And there's music and there's all sorts of other stuff
you
too.
can record your own voice in some cases. It's a missed, I would say that we believe the out-of-box experience, the first moments of, owning a new product, that it's a missed opportunity to not pay attention to the packaging and the out-of-box experience. The company that gets, very high marks, for this year after year is Apple. Apple is a very distinctive, well thought out experience. And you can tell, when you get it that, they want you to think that you're getting a, planetary gift, all right, that is unlike anything else that you've, opened recently. It's cool. I have had similar experiences with products from Japan. I have some kitchen knives that when they came, it was kind of like, wow, the packaging just as cool as the knife that's inside. So anyway, it says something about your pride in what you're making. And to the degree that you're not spending time and attention, to this, it's a problem, right? And when we think about one of the approaches, right, to doing this work at an organization level, that insight is, let's make your company easier to use. Because if it's, let's use that as the metaphor for, how do people learn about you? How do they, understand you on the website? I like to talk to people about, that there are two basic ways that people think about web design. One is Amazon, it's a commerce site. The other is annual report. It's, a way to communicate, who we are and what we do. The third, which I think is more important, is create a website that's an instruction manual, right? Do the same thing that you do when you get a new product that says, congratulations, all right? You have, just landed on a website in a company that you need to know more about, right? You're smart to be here, right? Let me tell you how to use this company, right? And what we do and why that's important. And especially for conglomerates and multinational companies that are hard to understand, an instruction manual metaphor really cuts through the stuff and gives you a frame to start to navigate the richness of the firm. I saw Mark Prinsky's hand go up, and then Mike, as always, welcome your thinking as co-host. Mark, what's on your mind?
This is great. This is great. I'm anxious actually to be part of it. I would love to join the team if you ever need somebody. I had lots of thoughts about this. The first thing you said with Amazon is, why doesn't every Amazon driver have a little spray that they spray the box, right, as they deliver it? So every delivery from Amazon smells like a delivery from Amazon, and that you could go in lots of directions. Disney does this all over the place. If you go through a Disney park, every single piece of a Disney park has a smell particularly associated with it that they do. And I've been to some Disney things where I was once watching a movie where they had things that touched your feet, and they had things that sprayed your face, and all so they're really good at it. The other thing that I thought, there's more than five senses. And so
That's
the
true.
biggest one that we don't talk about is temperature, that we're really good at sensing. And so maybe there's an opportunity to expand, because we have more than those five basic senses, and everybody agrees now that we do. So maybe there's a way to look at that, to go in some new directions that people haven't thought even about yet.
But Mark, the reason that we approach it the way that we do right now, and I recognize that there are, multiple ways, multiple, sensory, organs and apparatus. In fact, if you follow Rupert Sheldrake, morphic resonance is, intraspecies, communication, basic things that, you know, looks like we're, communicating telepathically, right? But, the fact is that it's kind of more along the lines of shared experience. I get that. I try to, stay in the more actionable space where there's technology or, readily available ways to implement it, because most organizations are only operating at a visual and verbal level. It's that they know what they look like and they know what they're saying, and that's about it. All right. They don't even get to the next level of, so what do you sound like? You know what Intel sounds like, but how many companies can you associate with a sound, right? There aren't that many. So you drop off pretty radically once you do the first. So we're trying to get people through the basics. All right.
I'm just trying to add value here
Of
to
course.
see
No,
what,
I'm
and
telling you
one of the
why we.
sound things is the spokesperson. So the voice that gets associated with your product, if you have a spokesperson, and even or even the persona that gets associated with your, like Flow for Progressive, that's a really sensory kind of thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know her voice even if you're not looking at the television set.
Yeah.
Right. And Audrey Arbini, who is one of our members at Audio Brain, creates the music for the Olympics and FIFA soccer. And when the Olympics are on, again, even if you're not looking at the set, right, that there's a there's a soundtrack to those events that she's created, right, that's actually quite good, and she's gotten some Emmys for it. When you boot your Xbox, the native sounds to Xbox, she designed those for Microsoft, right? And so those are all, important things. Mike, what's on your what's just triggering for you?
Speaking of audio, I was having audio problems at the top of the meeting, so my apologies. I was curious, as I've spoken to you about this, we've exchanged, and this great discussion today. This topic, you and I, is not new to us. I still struggle with, how do we present this to somebody whose experience is totally virtual through, say, a mobile application? I get the audio. Beyond that, is there value, even if I don't have like a physical storefront or a very physical, in device or product? Is the value going through sense mapping still going to pay off for me? I mean, how do you get across somebody who's like, I got a really good app, and I guess, yeah, good audio is great, what other senses do I need to be invoking?
Yeah, and I got it. There's a video that I saw recently. I might try to play it in a second, but let me just describe it first, right? Because these examples, arrive, from time to time. There is a Ford dealership in Florida where if you buy a vehicle or you bring your car in for service, they have their own 5-star Michelin restaurant that you get a ticket, right, to, be able to dine there, right, on their, it's built into the cost of having your car serviced or whatever, right? So people can't wait, right, because the food's so good that they can't wait to have their car serviced again, right? And it's kind of like, oh, why would car service be associated with, oh, it tastes good. Okay. Getting my car, serviced, tastes great. Well, they've created something that is an attractive force. It clearly differentiates, right, this dealership, right? And it's very imaginative, right? I think that there are those kinds of opportunities exist. One of the things that Andrea might remember is that when we were at IBM, we were doing sense layering of certain kinds of briefing experiences out of the corporate design shop, and we said, well, what does IBM taste like, right? How would we make that, and so we started to look at, all right, well, let's look at what we're presenting and the offerings. And in the server world, along with a big chunk of the stuff that was in PCs at the time, the stuff was black, right? The servers were black, the ThinkPad was black, right? And we said, what do you associate with that? Licorice, all right? It looks like, so how can we incorporate that chef? We would go to the chef, right? And say, how do we incorporate that into meals, all right? Because we have luncheons, we have other things. And they used Pernod, right, which is a licorice liqueur, as a signature, thing to use in like steak sauce reductions. A little bit of that would change the flavor profile, and they would use it in desserts, right? And they would say, well, this is the IBM signature, whatever. And people, said, oh, this stuff's great, right? And it would change, right? What they were imprinting on the first time that we told them, oh, this is a signature. Oh, I love that, right? Next time, I can't wait to have that again. And then they would put it into cookies and things that they could ship, right? So they would be able to say, hey, thanks for visiting. Here's some signature, it's very interesting how we were able to, to make that happen. Mike, as you think back to the customer that you are working with that's trying to infuse music, right, into, business and, interaction situations, they're not, as I remember, they were taking commercially available music and trying to map it to situations. And if that's an oversimplification, say more, but I remember they were a guest, right? How is that, helping businesses from your point of view? You're on mute, sir.
They haven't taken. I think they haven't taken that step that gets much closer to what Audrey does, right? Which is they're still very much focused on the app world, right? Where how do we associate, or make the link with, curated playlists of music with exercise, mindfulness, meditation apps, etc. I think they have that opportunity to go up, or expand their opportunity to physical spaces beyond just filling them with music. Their advantages, for folks who don't know, is They work with the labels, major labels, publishers, so that they have access to the catalog. They don't license
Right.
entire catalogs like Spotify does. It's very targeted application. But that is something, they're finding, that app publishers who may not, instantly have a use case for music, like exercise, guided meditation, etc. They are finding, some interest in simply adding a set of curated songs, right, that are, songs that are associated or encouraged, as you were talking about with the, that scent device, USB stick. Music can also put us in the right frame of mind for focus, collaboration, etc.
Right.
And they're finding, it's still a thing, right? It's still a challenge for them. An exercise app, a mindfulness meditation app, that's easy, right? They know they need music, and they know, they sometimes they have money to, commission some creation of some, but mostly what they want music that is recognizable to their clients, as well as fits a certain profile for whatever the benefit is you're trying to get. But I think the challenge, as I said, outside of those kind of self-selecting clients, the challenge is, well, you go to a CEO or a CMO or, and they're like, well, how do we use music? We use it for advertising, but how are you, that's kind of the challenge is how do you get them to understand that this can, for a small cost, this can create better engagement with your apps. It can focus your employees, etc. And that's, they're doing fairly well in that space. I think they haven't made that full, commitment to pursuing stuff outside of kind of app publishers that seem like have obvious use cases, but they are, kind of sketching it out, so to speak.
Yeah, that's good. I see some comments in here from Jim Spohr, from Omid Razavi. One of you want to jump in here? Omid?
Yeah, I can certainly do. Great to be back here. I have a few months of hiatus, changing my full-time job. Hopefully, I would never have an employer and continue to work just for myself. Yeah, I want to comment on B2B software experience from the on-prem world, even in this SaaS model. We do all the effort to present our customers with demos of our product, proof of concept. Well, once the deal is signed, instead of creating sort of excitement amongst our customers, as we may have worked only with a few people, but there are a broader group of users who are going to be using it, there is it's kind of a ho-hum, we send them an invoice. It takes time to implement the product, put in the, users get trained. So it's that delayed experience. I contrast it with the Zappos experience that you shared, where that opening the package, that very first experience, the buying is a great experience, and people actually put their comments and reviews when they just try the shoe or even open the box. They don't wait 3 months or 6 months. But in a software experience, we tell, oh, that customer is not referenceable. Let's wait till they go live, and years have gone past. So I'm just curious from consumer experience side, what we can learn to make our B2B customer experience better.
I will, because this was in public, I can repeat this story. I was at a conference, and there was an executive, right, to my right, and there was another executive to my left, right, at like a table of 8, and the one of the people, they started to talk about SAP, right, and the so, oh, hey, I work for SAP, right, and say, well, yes, we're starting an SAP, implementation, right, and and the exec from SAP says, so how painful is it? Right? Because they know that, on-prem installation of SAP is notoriously, difficult, right? And, so knowing that that's the imprint in the marketplace, I had a follow-on conversation. I said, why don't we find a way to change that? And, there are some things that are happening. I can't discuss, the rest of that conversation about what's happening. But the fact is, there's recognition and a desire to want to change that. That's their out-of-box experience, right? And we need to change the first moments of working with us from not being an example in welcome to our torture chamber, right? So, I mean, it's interesting, the both the scale and the ongoing opportunities there are to make things, all right, making organizations easier to use. And ease of use, think about this as organization ergonomics, right? Or organization human factors, right? We know how to do it at the product level, and we kind of know how to do it at the service level, but we're just learning how to do this at, how to craft the organization so that it's easier to use for the people who are participating as team members, and then projecting that out into the marketplace, right? But we're getting there. I mean, Todd Hoskins talked a couple of weeks ago about going from organization to ecosystem design. This is all part and parcel of that kind of thinking.
Yeah,
So, Amit, thanks for being with us. And I will say, yes, continue to pursue things that are, that pay you twice, right? That you like to do and that are entertaining you at the same time, my friend.
Yeah, I figure as I enter the fourth quarter of my professional career, I should be more picky in terms of what really gives me joy, and less concerned about the higher aboves.
If you looked at the screen, all right, the Hollywood squares here of how many people were smiling when you were saying that, right? Lots of agreement, tons of agreement here.
That's great.
All right. Jim, you were putting some stuff into chat. Join us.
Sure. Thanks for the interesting discussion, everyone. I'll start with a sensory experience. This morning when I was going for my walk, I passed a field that I normally pass, but the day before they had mowed it. So there was freshly mown grass, and the sprinklers just happened to be on with a slight breeze. So there was like this moisture grass smell, which was just wonderful. It gave me just such a good feeling smelling, feeling just a little bit of moisture. Yeah,
Jim, I wanted to tell you that I went to an indoor golf course in Seoul, South Korea. It was in the basement of the JW Marriott, and they were spraying fresh grass smell into the indoor environment to make it, a little bit more, realistic. So there you go.
And
I
let's
didn't know
all
that there was fresh grass smell, but there is fresh grass smell available.
It's one of my favorite smells, but it's also, in order to get that smell, we have to kill the grass. We have to mow it. So I call it grass blood.
Okay, there you go.
Wonder if you can order that at any menu someplace. Tomato juice and grass flavor. Anyway, I'm glad you brought up the Pine and Gilmore thing, that what comes on the experience economy is the transformation economy, and anybody that hasn't read the book and read the last chapter is really missing a treat, because I think that transformation economy chapter was really remarkable, and I'm glad they're working on the next book, and I'll get it as soon as it comes out. But I do think when I was at Apple, Alan Kay would always say, remove gratuitous difficulty. Don't remove useful challenge. And the example he gave was like, anybody can play the kazoo, but it's very hard to learn how to play the violin. But, there's violin performances that he said makes him cry when he listens to them. And he hasn't yet heard a kazoo concert that made him cry. So we do know that, especially for transformation, challenge is important. Education is hard. Sometimes, following your doctor's orders is hard. So there is, this aspect of challenge and experience that's important for transformation. So that's
No, I agree. And the fact is that that level of challenge is deeply associated with Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's flow psychology model, right? Is that leads to engagement, right?
exactly.
And when we think about this, and Joe actually agrees with what we're doing in this space, as I said, we're thinking a lot less about experience the way that you talk about it or have talked about it traditionally, Joe, which is you need to stage your company. You need to put your company on stage, provide a spectacle that people in your customer base, the audience, right, can appreciate and think is great. We're in the, we want to deconstruct the proscenium stage and go back to the one-to-one, right, interaction, right? We want to go to designing presence, right? Which he accepts that, that terminology is that you graduate from staging experience to designing moments of presence where the size of the organization collapses down to the moment of interaction. And then it's not a big company and a customer, right? We're the same size at that moment, right? And we're interacting with each other. And, it reminds me at the organization level of the phrase, employees don't quit companies, they quit managers, right? The experience, they don't experience the whole company. They experience the dyadic nature of the people that are around them, right? And so we're pursuing that, right? More in the sensory management arena and in terms of organization and ecosystem design. Andrea, your hand is up. You're on mute, Andrea.
The other aspect of what you're talking about is the relationship between like employee satisfaction and customer satisfaction. And I was dealing with a situation where we had really bad customer sat, and we kind of peeled back the onion, and the experience with the employees was so negative, right? And sometimes you talk about sensory experience, the difference between, a smiling employee and someone who's just putting a little chatter. And part of the problem was that the employees were timed. So the shorter the call, they thought the better. And it turns out that was not the case, because if you rewarded employees for short call times, they didn't go through the "hi, how you doing" kind of setting that stage and the emotional aspect of it. And when you had a little bit longer time, it was associated with improved client sat. So I think that's something that we forget is, that interaction and focusing on not just how you're treating your employees, but how your employees are treating your clients, and how you can stage that, how you can script that, how you can reward that. And I don't think organizations necessarily pay enough attention to some of those, non, structural elements, right? The whole human interaction, the emotional aspects of it.
Yeah. Well, I remember the era that we went through where that was the metric that the call centers were using, which is, how long did it take you to solve that problem, right? Oh, you're not good at solving problems, right? You need to get better, kind of thing. Then the more sophisticated organizations graduated to, would you stay on the line for a quick survey afterwards, right, to tell me, well, what did you, what was your experience with, what you just had? And normally, if this is, purely transactional, QA done, all right, then you better just have one Likert, or Likert thing that says, was it good or bad, all right, kind of thing. However, if it's a deep engagement, right, where, it took an hour to get it done because, you had a technical problem, right, and it's with your cable company or a new device or a whatever, setup. A lot of people are willing to engage, all right, in that. They're even more willing to engage, all right, if they had a bad experience. Yeah, I want to tell you what just happened, right? And so those people get very motivated to try to deliver an experience that is not going to ding them on the survey, right? And that's actually, pretty good. I will say something bad right now about auto dealerships. You leave the auto dealership and they say, you're going to get a survey. And if you don't give me excellent, all right, I'm going to be in trouble, right? So what they're doing is they're polluting, right? And telling you that if you don't give me a 10 out of 10, all right, I'm going to have a problem. And so I have, basically told, a handful of the car companies that behavior is you should just go ahead and stop asking those things to get filled in if that's what's happening right at the dealership, because it means that if you're willing to make that request, what else are you not telling me? All right. All right. It basically destroys trust. Right. And so I'm, Andrea, I have always been on the camp that says customer satisfaction metrics need to be decoupled from executive compensation, because
They
it
get gamed
forces you
otherwise.
to cook the
Yeah.
books, right?
Right.
And then you deceive yourself because you cook the books into thinking that your customers like you, all right? It's this, cycle of deception. And I said, as well-intentioned as it is, all right, do not link executive compensation to customer satisfaction, all right? Find some other measures, but that's the wrong one, because you really want to know, all right, whether you're about to fall off the cliff, all right?
And I think you also have to look at other metrics. I'm looking at, client turnover. So if the client satisfaction is really high, but you're losing half your customers, it's gamed.
Exactly. Exactly
Don't
right.
look at this at one metric, right?
Exactly
Yeah.
right. All right. So, or the observation I made about GE, which is, if you followed, the advice from a chairman, a couple of cycles back that said, you need to be number one or number two in your industry or we're going to sell you. Well, guess what? Every year you're going to redefine what industry you're in, so you're number one or number two, all right? That you would change the assumptions, all right? And the effect that eventually got GE delisted, all right, from the big composite in the stock exchange, is the business units weren't getting bigger, they were getting smaller every year, right, to meet that definition, right? And eventually the later chairman couldn't turn that around. So it's a problem. Hello, Kyle Shannon. Join us.
Hey, everybody. This is a really interesting one. One of the things I put in there in 1997, we created a joke product called Real Aroma, which was a USB desktop thing that would generate smells for you. And since then, probably about once a year, a real product attempts to come onto market like that. And there was, smell-o-vision in the theaters. So there have been a lot of attempts to sort of consumerize this, which have kind of failed, which I think is a really interesting thing. Here's what struck me when Andrea was talking. I feel like this kind of branding conversation is really important, but I feel like it's risky to put time into this kind of effort if your basic customer service across the organization is shitty, right? So if I go into something and they've got smell-o-vision and it all feels great, and then I try to change, my appointment and I get into some voicemail hell and no one ever answers the phone and I get kicked off the thing, it completely obliterates. Like, I don't care what you're doing. Like it feels like this is sort of anchoring stuff if you're doing your base job well. But so many companies right now, I can't, they're like, maybe 5 companies in the world right now that I experience are operating at a level that I'm not pissed off at them 90% of the time. And smell-o-vision ain't gonna fix it.
So Kyle, no, we absolutely agree with you. The remember the objective is fully human, right? As opposed to organizationally flat, right? And lifeless, right?
Yeah.
And coherence, right? That, that what you're doing inside and how you're behaving externally are well aligned to each other. That completely plays to what you're saying. And by the way, if you haven't read the Francis Frey Harvard Business Review, article about, the things a service organization must do well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is her recommendation is you have to decide what you're going to be known for and heavily invest in those things. And then there are some things that you need to stop trying to work the list, all right, that people are complaining about, but you're never going to be good at because that's not what you intend to do. My case study in this is Microsoft and customer service. Microsoft, right, years ago made a decision that, unless you were a subscriber to a certain level of, product with them, that we're not going to help you with Microsoft products. All right. So how do you get help? Well, there are Microsoft certified people out in the marketplace that do know our products really well. And what they did was they converted an expense into revenue because certifications cost money, right? So become Microsoft certified. So they create a group of people who know the product that can help you. They offload their own, customer support expense, and they get revenue for certification revenue, right? Does that mean that it is the most loved company on the planet? No, it is not, okay? However, do people think it's competent? Yeah, they think it's competent, right? And, it's not like, you've been cut loose, put into the airlock and released into space, okay? A lot of people use, those products, operating systems and so on and so forth, and, they get through the day. So I think that the opportunity for Microsoft in this new AI era, with their partnerships with companies like, OpenAI, is that Microsoft can get back into that business at a low cost with automation, right? And they can start to, put themselves back into, guess what? We used to be, the company that was unapproachable. You can now interact with us in a new way. And while are we fully human? Yeah, but we're more approachable, aren't we? All right. So, there's an opportunity there. And I think that they're likely to take advantage of it, and they'll be able to burnish off some of these rough edges that the company has always had. And then will Microsoft ever smell like anything, Kyle? Who knows? All right.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing that. We're up at the top of the hour. I've got time for one more. Let me just see here. Who have we not heard from? I haven't heard from Amy. I haven't heard from Bruce. Anybody want to jump in? Amy, you turned your mic on. Hello.
I'll just hello. I just love being able to learn so much from this group. Really appreciate it, and so much of what I do, as Kevin knows, is focused on the nonprofit do good world now at the U.S. Institute of Peace. So I'm thinking about how I apply what I'm learning here to the environment and the experience that we are trying to create and cultivate here at the U.S. Institute of Peace. We are really working on opening up the Institute and engaging the American public in some very big ways over the next couple of years. And so I think, I think all of this, Kevin, this conversation has been very, not only engaging, but I think inspiring for some of the things that we can do, so that when people walk into this huge, cavernous, white building filled with light, they don't think things like, wow, peace is white and it's transparent and it's light filled, which is great. That's what we want them to think. But it's also silence and echoing and, and whatnot. So, my challenge here thinking about all of this is we know what violence smells like. It's acrid, know what it sounds like, know what it looks like. For a public that we are trying to engage in thinking very broadly and deeply about what constitutes peace, I think the challenge for us is to figure out what the sensory experience of peace is. We all kind of know it. I think even Mike was talking about, getting to that place of calm and, the inner being. But because we're focused on the communal aspect, the aspects of how you deal with conflict dynamics in peaceful ways, even when conflict is going to be there. I think there's a lot to explore. I was beginning to think maybe peace smelled like fresh mown grass with a slight dew attached to it. And then Mark came up and talked about grass blood, and I thought maybe that's not a piece of work for all. So anyway, I just wanted to observe that there's so much here that the nonprofit sector, the government sector, NGOs can really learn from to try and advance the work that we're doing.
Well, I'm glad to follow up with you. We can absolutely, map out, a preliminary journey, right, to look at that.
Yeah.
I might just tell you that here's how I, bring, the outside world inside, right? Is our house has 2 baby monitors. We don't have any kids in the house, but the transmitters are outside in the yard. Okay. And so in the morning, in the evening, so on and so forth, as things happen, as the birds sing, they're actively part of our inside environment, right? We hear the birds inside the house, right? And so while I'm looking through windows, what would ordinarily be a silent interior becomes alive, right? And at a very low cost, right? So if you have courtyards, if you have other things, all right, at a very low cost, you can make silent environments sound alive by just putting, a baby monitor in the courtyard and the receiver inside the large space. You will be amazed at what it does in terms of just that as a minor transformation in a, something, because those bird songs actually resonate very nicely across, those hollow spaces.
Large spaces with lots of windows.
Yeah. So
Thanks.
with that, I thanks for being with us. Thanks everyone for joining today, and use your imagination about how to use human senses, human sense making in powerful ways. And if you need Content Evolution's help, Kaji Yamazaki, who, by the way, his Richard Sapper book, all right, Richard Sapper Design, that was originally published in Japanese, will be available in English. He's one of our team members soon. I helped him edit that book, and I encourage you in a month or so to look at it, look for it on Amazon. Remarkable journey that we were all on with Richard, designing ThinkPad and a lot of other things that we still recognize in our world. With that, all the best, and in everything you do, be intentional. Take care. Talk soon.